Rand.
Welcome back to Give Me Rent. This is Dylan.
This is Noah. What's up, everyone?
What's up? I think today we've been thinking about this for a while. We were able to see a new comedy movie last night, and it kind of had us thinking, where are all the comedy movies? What's going on? Am
Yeah,
I
I,
right?
I think we've been in a weird age of comedy movies where studios, I guess, really aren't fully comfortable committing.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a couple different factors that really play into this. Something that I've really been thinking about recently is, can you name a quotable comedy movie from the last 10 years?
Well, if
Like
you don't
truly
count,
quotable, like where you can quote so many lines from it, like an
if you're talking
Anchorman.
like straight comedy, like I really couldn't. There's maybe a few in there that I guess really when I start thinking about it, I think of action comedies and movies that are both drama and comedy. That there's obviously some great movies that have great comedic bits in them. You got the Safdie movies obviously have good bits of comedy in
Yeah.
them. Even films like I'd say The Holdovers, which is a big drama movie that has some moments of levity that I really like. There's not really any straight comedies where, especially when you have like a comedian leading the movie,
Yeah.
they
Well,
come out, but they're not heavily marketed anymore.
yeah.
Studios don't really believe in them, and a lot of the famous comedy actors of the past they don't want to commit to them anymore. We really just have Adam Sandler. So you asked really what movies have been released. We've gotten a few Sandler movies on Netflix. Of course, we had Happy Gilmore 2 this year, which I didn't love, but it was at least a little bit fun, and it made me start thinking about exactly where are all these comedy movies,
Yeah.
especially released in theaters, because that I would have
100%.
rather that still be in theaters.
Comedies used to be the best movies to go see in a crowd because everyone would just, especially if they liked it, they'd be eating it up and you'd be laughing together in a communal group. It's like a fun thing to do. I think it's very few in between now where it's just we
Well,
don't
one
get
thing
any
that
of
you said
these.
to me too, and also, again, we're not talking about even animated movies because that's another one that I didn't list. Like, there's obviously been a ton of animated comedies that have come out. They're funny movies still, but those are actually profitable, and studios still believe in them. And I'm not actually, no, I'm not saying comedy movies live action can't be profitable, but there was a turning point where studios started to believe they weren't really bankable anymore.
Yeah.
Especially these stars when they can turn to podcasts
Yeah. Well,
and other avenues that make easy money. That has, I feel like, really
yeah,
hurt.
exactly. I think that's my first point. Especially, we don't see these comedian-led comedy movies anymore. It's just there's a couple of them, but yeah, why go through the trouble of making a film when you can just weekly do a podcast and make more money, make tons of more money? So like, I actually understand why these comedians aren't working a film anymore. Because guys, it's hard to make a movie. It is not easy to make a film.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna take that, take podcasting over making a movie, which is grueling work, I kind of get it.
Yeah, no, I do understand, the business side of it, but it's wild that a lot of comedians don't want to have, their own movie anymore. There's a lot of, newer comedians that I could see possibly trying to lead a movie and not a streaming movie, a theatrical release. That's what we're talking
Yeah.
about here. And, when you start thinking about it, 2025, we're not devoid of straight comedy movies.
Yes,
I
we
what I
got
think
we got a couple great ones this year. I'm not saying they're non-existent.
obviously we got The Naked Gun,
Yeah.
we got Friendship. There's a few movies this year that were straight comedies, but they're still not really. They're not like an Anchorman. They're not
Yeah.
a straight flagship movie that's trying to be this vehicle for this star. Even though you could make that argument for Tim Robinson, but not really when it's him and Paul Rudd.
And I'd also, Friendship is definitely a unique case because
Yeah.
there's some genuine, filmmaking like artistry to that film as well. It obviously utilizes Tim Robinson very well, but it's not all just Tim Robinson. Like there's a lot in that movie.
Well, I've said it once on this channel, and I'll say it again because I really do believe it's going to be a big tell. We're seeing a kind of return to spoof movies coming back to
Yeah.
at least, theatrical releases. This week we saw a film called Fackham Hall. I've never heard of it, and we went to the Screen Unseen showing of it.
I am so happy we did because first of all, this is a Jimmy Carr produced, written film.
So yeah,
So
British spoof
this is
movie.
one of our big comedians, like actually, putting his hand into film and trying to do something. And I
Yeah.
thought it was pretty funny. I actually,
Yeah, I never heard of the movie, so I didn't know anything about it. And I had a decent time watching it. It's definitely funny, and it was. I feel like they took it semi seriously. Like within the realm of a spoof movie.
yeah. Well, when I was watching it, I was just pleasantly surprised. I'm like, yeah, we need more of this stuff. Like, we need more of this not safe for work humor, just kind
Yeah,
of 3 jokes a minute kind of movies where it's just like, yeah, it's kind of like The Naked Gun. It's the same kind of
exactly. It
deal.
did feel like that. And back to what I was saying, really, what I've said on this channel in the past, we've seen the return of spoof movies, but we know that we're getting the return to scary movie
Yeah.
next year.
I think that'll be a big indicator if people want this. People want
Yeah.
comedy movies back, you know?
I think that movie doing well, if it does do well, we're going to see a ton more scary movies, first off.
Well, I'm happy you brought up Scary Movie because it kind of brings up my other point where I think what's been happening to comedy movies recently is, I just think culture has really changed and people's sense of humor have been more different than ever before.
But we also do live in an age where a lot of our media is extremely cynical.
Yeah.
A lot of the stories that we get are, they're not super lighthearted anymore. Like, it's not that they're non-existent, but a lot of the main flagship movies that we get involve bleak stories.
Mhm.
And I think that if we see Scary Movie do well, we're going to see a huge just push for studios wanting to not take things seriously again, but also, no, what I'm really trying to say here is this. I think the studios are looking at these films because Scary Movie is going to spoof a lot of movies. And I think what the studios are seeing is let's try to like really make fun of ourselves and make fun of the last kind of decade plus of the industry. It's been such a weird time, and we've said horror movies are in a good state, but again, like those are the bleakest stories we have. I think if we can all be in a communal space, like making fun of our current media, which is what these spoof movies do, make fun of pop culture. Not even that's another thing that's tough with the world right now. What can we make fun of? Like people are very uncomfortable. That's another reason comedy movies aren't really seen as much.
I think people are more sensitive than ever before.
Yeah.
And it's, a lot of these studios and a lot of these writers in general are like, they're thinking they have to tiptoe around people. I really think they shouldn't even think about that whatsoever. And I've been happy to hear that the Wayans brothers, they're saying this is going to be like, we are not holding back.
Yeah.
We are going
I
all in on this
apologize
being
to
not
get
safe for
wordy there,
work.
but you're right. That's really what I'm trying to get at. It's that with this movie, they've promised they're really trying to not hold back. And like make sure people can, again, make fun of themselves and make fun of these things that we love. Like, why can't we get back to that day and age where we make fun of, we can make light of certain things? Obviously, we're in a very, very, cynical world, and that, reflects in the stories that we see.
No doubt.
But again, we used to have a lot more stories about, I guess, lighthearted things, and we used to be able to.
There would be comedy movies. Just think about The Hangover. It's about a hangover. Simple concept, but you do so much with it. You just expand. You get a little tiny thing.
But that follows
and you expand
people that are, questionable in their actions.
Yeah.
And you still follow them and you love them. We've moved away from that even.
Yeah.
Having
morally
movies
gray
where
characters.
they're morally great, you're doing morally great things. And I think there has been a few releases where, things, it's not completely devoid. But again, there isn't a huge abundance of those. And
There's
that's
also
weird
just
to
like,
see.
I just think the want and the popularity of them is so down. Like, that's
The
what I'm
only
saying. We
thing
don't-
I can think of about a plot line like that going on is Chad Powers. We
Mhm.
have a show where someone's, pretending to be someone else. It is a, very. I honestly I haven't seen that whole series, but I will say that's a welcome addition to our current, comedy landscape, because it is again another story where you're following someone doing something that isn't completely morally correct, but you're supposed to follow him and root for him. So like you got to find a fine line with that again, where again when people are so cynical, and not even cynical, but so some people just look at things just at face value, and they take characters just as one note, and it's very weird when like we used to have these characters that were very questionable, but you always can find that space to find something to love about them, and you could follow them, and that was a big thing for these comedians. We followed characters that could sometimes be kind of assholes.
Yeah.
And yet think of the early Sandler movies. Think really specifically Billy Madison. But what happened to movies like that where you could follow someone, and plus, part of the movie is showing them, become better, but it's still like you're able to follow this person and not be so annoyed for the entire time.
Yeah. And it's really weird too with the industry. Like you got to remember how, especially in the like 90s into the early 2000s, it might have not been everyone, but how much weight Saturday Night Live had
Yeah.
on the film industry.
Yeah.
Some people would just be like, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about?" But look back on the comedy movies of the early 2000s. Sandler, Farrell. It's all the big people from SNL, the big names that
Schneider, Spade,
literally all of them went to SNL, eventually
Mike
graduated,
Myers.
and then started making films. Mike Myers. It was literally just all those big comedians from SNL.
Yeah.
So I kind of attribute it to we're not getting good talent even on that space anymore.
There's a few that obviously people do like nowadays, and we see Marcello getting work now. Casted in Shrek
But
5.
name one SNL cast member that could lead a movie right now.
That
You
could
can't.
lead a movie.
You
I could
can't.
not.
You genuinely could not.
We got the Please Don't Destroy movie that was straight to streaming. I do find that group funny enough, but you're right. We even saw one of them make an appearance on The Running Man this year. They definitely can't lead movies.
Yeah, I mean, all due respect to Please Don't Destroy, their comedy is meant for short form YouTube and Saturday Night Live skits, which means they're good.
Yeah.
But are they meant for feature films? Maybe not. I'd like to see them give it another go for sure. Because
good
again,
on
I
'em.
want more of these movies back. But judging from their first outing, got some work. But maybe not all these people's first outings were incredible. It takes time. You need to see what works and it really kind of tell what your audience is, especially when you're a niche comedian like Please Don't Destroy.
Yeah, no, it's tough too. Where we also have a lot of space where I think we're even past this point, but still a lot of comedians say that were huge in the early 2000s and 2010s. They're doing kind of semi like dramedy type movies. Where Adam Sandler, he did his Uncut Gems. He's done comedy movies since then. He's done serious movies since then. But think about like our Will Arnett. He hasn't done a comedy movie in so long. He's about to star in a sort of like more dramatic movie.
I kind of attribute this to my earlier point because, again, it's hard to make movies, and what will appeal to these people is there some artistry in this? Is there something I like in this?
Yeah.
Can I act in this? Can I actually do something as opposed to just joking every 30 seconds and whatever, just showing off what they believe is their personality, which is they want to break form, they want to show that they have other talents. That's what it's appealing to these people that want to make film. On the other side, the comedians that just have their one personality, they're making podcasts, they're making YouTube videos, they're sticking to their own
You are
realm.
right though. Like obviously, it's so segmented now. There's so much content. There's so many avenues for them to go, like podcasts, stuff like that. But you're so right in mentioning SNL, where it's like, yeah, like where can we find comedians that want to lead movies? Because they're obviously out there.
Yeah.
Like we're not gonna go to comedy clubs and just pick people up. Like yeah, they could glow up on social media. That could help.
Yeah.
But you're right. Where is the place that comedians can literally kind of be molded?
You literally,
in a way,
if you
to
look,
be ready for the big screen.
I mean, if you look back in history, you can see, it's like these comedians, they come from Second City, they come from the Groundlings in LA. They eventually they go up to SNL, and then eventually they get movie deals, and that's how it happens. These were the biggest comedians in the world. Think about Farley, think about Spade, think about Sandler.
And now
think
it's literally just not
think
worthwhile
about
for
Eddie
them to go
Murphy
into the
for,
movies.
crying out loud. There's so many people that came from SNL that were just the biggest comedians in the world, and that time is over.
Yeah, and I do think that with everything coming, with the spoof movies coming, with obviously comedy movies aren't completely dead, and I'd say there's still a space for them where The Naked Gun, Friendship, they didn't make the most money, but they weren't box office failures.
Yeah.
They weren't the most expensive to make. So I guess if studios see that again, like, hey, like just like horror movies, these aren't that expensive to produce. Maybe there's something there because yeah, you got to get your main star, but at the end of the day, like they're not Hollywood A-list actors asking for the biggest payday.
Yeah.
These are movies can still be achievable, and I think they can still really make money. It's just I think the studios need to wait and see if the world's ready for it, which I personally think it hasn't really not been time for comedies.
I would argue that this is the biggest time for comedy ever. I think we need
yeah,
it more than ever.
obviously, the world is in a state right now, that it wasn't in 5 years ago, but I don't think the comedies really should be gone. I don't think we're in a state where we shouldn't be able to go to the movies and laugh. There should be an avenue for somewhere to go and do that. Comedy movies are a great place to just go and like all movies. Obviously, you can just shut down and immerse yourself. But comedy movies have a different, especially in a different feeling, especially in a different, in a communal space. It's different than sitting at home and watching YouTube videos for 2 hours.
Yeah, like no flack on that, but yeah, there used to be times where people would be like, "When's the next Pharaoh movie coming out?" And they
Exactly.
would
That was what I was
patiently
going to get
wait.
to. It wasn't even about what the movie was. It was like, yeah, like the new Adam Sandler movie's out. Let's go see it. Which I'm not saying the Adam Sandler movies are great like films, but again, that's what I'm trying to say. When you go to a comedy movie, it's a different experience
Yeah.
than say you're going to watch like a real film.
Yeah, unless unless you were a super cynical person, flashback to 15 years ago, there was a comedy movie coming out that was catered to your taste, that you
Yeah.
would like. There was a comedy movie for everyone in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And it's just we're not even seeing much rom-coms anymore. It's like these studios are scared to throw out these movies, one for the profit and two cuz they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. It's tough.
Yeah, and again, like we're not saying it's completely gone, but it's just been in such a weird state where again, like we're getting a lot of these things that we're talking about are released not in theaters. They go straight to streaming, like the Please Don't Destroy film. And honestly, I didn't even know that existed for the longest time.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it needs to come out in theaters for me to know what it is, but it's weird that, they just don't even want to put comedies in theaters. It's, I'm being a little redundant here, but I think that going forward, yeah, I think studios are getting more curious because it's been reported that, you know, the studios are interested in doing spoof movies again because I heard after Scary Movie they might want to do like epic or
A
disaster
new
movie
disaster
too or
movie,
something
yeah.
like that, which wasn't even a good movie of the past, but there's so much more material to spoof now that I think, if Scary Movie does well, we're going to see a return to a lot of spoofs.
Yeah.
And, that could be,
It could be good or bad.
yeah, it could be good or bad.
I don't want all comedy
That's
movies
not
to be
our
spoof
point here. We don't
movies.
want them to all be spoofs, but
Yeah.
I think the spoof could be a big thing for studios to believe just in comedy again.
Also, not even just studios. I think spoof movies can be a good indicator if people are willing to open up and accept comedy again. Because, let's be real, spoof movies are definitely the ones that typically go the farthest. They definitely,
because I have
push some buttons.
I have a list right next to me where it's the comedy movies listed out for 2026, and I gotta say, like, none of these films, besides like we got honestly, still like all of them have like action, they're action comedies, or they're animated, like I mentioned, or they're kind of horror adjacent with the Ready or Not sequel coming out. Like, there's no straight comedies on this list, and there's at least 30 movies here. It's absolutely insane that, like, yeah, we don't have at least one movie that's led by a comedian. That
and would you
people
say
are
the one
really
you're
excited
looking
about?
Would you say the one you're looking forward to most is Scary Movie 6?
Scary for 2026?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's not my most anticipated movie of 2026.
Oh, I just mean comedy.
Of comedies, if we're counting this list, then I mean, yeah, probably. Like, I guess maybe Coyote Acme. I could count that. It's a live action cartoon hybrid that that's probably the closest we're getting to, like. But still, again, it's an IP based thing. It's not led by a comedian. Like, I'm excited for that movie. It's definitely going to be a comedy.
Will
movie.
Arnett is in that, right?
I think Forte's in it.
Will Forte.
Will Forte's in it. So they
somehow
still got some
always confuse
famous
those two.
comedians in it. So we're gonna have to wait and see how they market that too. I'm excited it's coming out though. I'm very thankful that they're releasing it.
Yeah, I mean they literally swept that film completely under the rug, so it's shocking to even see they're releasing it.
Yeah, but
Also,
yeah,
John Cena was in it too. They swept the John Cena movie under the rug, which is nuts.
There's such big stars in it, and we are getting the new Fokker movie next year. I have to mention that. It is nice to see that's known as a comedy series. It's coming back. That's really good news. I think with Scary Movie 6, Fokker In-Law coming, it's going to be a big tell. If those do well, then we could see a big return to comedies.
That actually is a good thing because those couldn't be farther on the spectrum. Because think about
I
it.
would love to see some more Stiller comedies because Stiller has only upped his game, in production wise,
and he's really good at making.
direction-wise.
He's really good at making endearing comedies and also very out there comedies as well. Think about Tropic Thunder. So yeah, like we need a movie like that again. We need a Tropic Thunder.
Wouldn't mind another Walter Mitty,
half
but yeah,
spoof,
Tropic Thunder,
half just pure comedy, and that's the stuff we need. We need people to.
I think he was deterred after Zoolander too.
Oh yeah,
I think that's the last thing we should mention in this conversation is that a lot of the studios got deterred after a lot of these crappy sequels were made. Dumb and Dumber 2, Zoolander 2. Like, no one remembers those. And listen, Scary Movie 6 and Father-in-Law are sequels. But I do think if they do well, studios may believe in some more original comedies again.
Yeah.
It's just a good
You know,
outlet. It's genuinely, like I said, it's a good outlet. It's a different experience than going to, say, a Dune 2 or, any like actual like or just a drama, a big drama, a big Avatar 3. It's so different than going to something like that.
yeah, totally. Well, I am really curious to know, like, do you guys want comedy movies back? I am really curious what the general consensus is here. Do we miss them? Do we?
What is your thought on the
Yeah,
current state? Maybe your thoughts are different than ours. It is not, they're not completely dead.
yeah,
So what are your thoughts on the current age of comedy?
and yeah, what are you guys looking forward to? But thank you guys for joining us. Catch you next time.